I think this is where I say that these Liverpool transfer updates are like London buses, in that you wait ages for one and two come along at once. But even though I've done a video earlier today, it would be foolish if I didn't jump on to discuss this major breaking news that we're hearing around Liverpool, which is that the club have approached Newcastle over their striker Alexander Isak. Now, quickly want to give you an insight into how life is like as a journalist covering Liverpool Football Club, and how frustrating it is at times, actually, because I had heard these rumours. I was discussing with someone earlier, a source that I trust actually, that things had been ramping up between Liverpool and Newcastle, and that they had approached them to maybe with a verbal offer or an outline of what a deal would look like. And yet I approached Liverpool to ask about this, and it was very much firmly denied, and that is only a few hours ago. And I did make the joke that I'm probably going to read about this in a few hours when someone beats me to it, and unfortunately that has proven to be the case. But of course, you've got to give huge credit to the journalists who were able to firm the story up and get there, and this is a massive story, so huge credit to them, because we're talking about a huge feat, a huge player to the Premier League champions. It's a massive story, and one that I have to say, frustrated and gutted that I didn't get, but credit to those journalists who absolutely did. Now, the reports that we are reading at the moment suggest that Liverpool have made this approach and are prepared to pay a fee of around 120 million for Alexander Isak. It's a case now of Newcastle's response to that. I guess there are some outline talks ongoing, and we see what comes of that, because it gives Newcastle a decision to make. And I think from Liverpool's perspective, of course, it's the element that's maybe surprising is that they are willing to spend such a huge sum of money yet again in this transfer window that's already seen so much spending. Of course, they broke the British transfer record for Florian Wirtz, or they will break that transfer record for Florian Wirtz should he trigger all the add-ons in his move from Bayer Leverkusen. They've already brought in Frimpong, they've signed Mamardashvili as well, they've signed Kirkes, so they've done a lot of big spending. But of course, the potential is there as well for Liverpool to make some big sales as well, which would effectively kind of almost cancel out that first tranche of spending, really, if they manage to do that. And if they are able to do that, then they can go again for a big player such as an Alexander Isak. So, for example, we look at Darwin Núñez's situation, which I discussed in my earlier video. Same with Luis Diaz. Not really touched on Harvey Elliott and the potential sale there. There are so many more potential sales, so that they can be in a position to go again and go big. So it looks like with this approach to for Alexander Isak that they are willing to break the British transfer record for the second time in the same transfer window. So incredible, really. But it's a real show of intent from Liverpool that they've made this approach. And I think financially you can justify that they can absolutely get there with sales as well. Now, of course, the big question now is, what do Newcastle think? They've been kind of adamant through the window that they don't want to sell, and yet I've also kind of got a feeling that there's an underlying narrative there of they fear a Liverpool approach, or they didn't think that they could fully see it off. I mean, if it was a complete hands-off, they could have been a lot more firm in the reports. And I would say as well, and I've mentioned this in other videos, one of the things that made me think that Liverpool might be in for this, even though it's a difficult deal to do, is the fact that they, of course, themselves haven't really been ruling Alexander Isak out. So you always felt that this was maybe on the table. And I have to say, my feeling that it was more possible started to grow over the last 24 hours or so with the news that Newcastle had made a big offer for Ekitike at Eintracht Frankfurt. I mean, just on the face of it, I don't think it's putting two and two together and getting five to say that they are similar profiles of player at the end of the day, and that they maybe wouldn't work in a two. I know Newcastle very much reported that, or they pushed the line on their side of things, that they wanted to pair the two together, but I think it's very, very difficult to see how that worked. And that's why I kind of took those rumours that I heard this morning with some credit, really, because I just felt that it looked like they were preparing themselves for maybe an Isak departure. But of course, the ball is still in their court in terms of what they want to do. Whether they reject Liverpool's approach out of hand, we will have to see on that front. That is an option for them. Maybe they want Ekitike for a year to bed him in before they then consider Isak. That is all on the table, and we will have to see. But of course, if they do that, there's every chance that Liverpool then come into the mix for Ekitike as well. So do Newcastle want to do that? That's a player they've chased for a long time. Again, like I say, the ball is in their court, and a big, big decision for them to make. And one thing more I would say as well that's worth underlining in this whole process is that Richard Hughes and Eddie Howe are long-time friends. They've known each other for a long time. They discuss things over the phone, including not just football, but they are friends that discuss all things in life. They'll be, speaking to each other on a regular basis. With that in mind, and that's something that's emphasised to me by a source, surely Richard Hughes isn't going into this situation blind, believing that Newcastle are just going to reject this out of hand. I think he must have a sneak that there's a possibility of Liverpool doing a deal here. So I think that's something that should encourage Liverpool supporters about this aspect, and make them think that there's a real chance that Liverpool get this deal over the line. But as I say, it's just developing now, this story, and we wait to see what the next developments are in terms of whether Liverpool are able to agree a deal or not. But I think one thing we can all agree on is that this is a hugely exciting move for Liverpool, a huge potential signing, a huge statement as they look to defend the Premier League and go further in the Champions League next season. So let's see how it all plays out. It's very, very exciting, isn't it? So do let me know your thoughts in the comment section on this. It's absolutely incredible news. How good of a signing would this be? How excited about him are you? And how much would you pay maybe to get him? And if you could drop me a like and a subscribe, that'd be hugely appreciated. And I'll see you guys very soon, maybe even later today when there's another transfer update. Who knows? See you then.